Well, I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of the Empowered Grief Journey podcast. I'm your host, Chris Mamoni, and I'm an acceptance coach who helps people heal from grief, loss, and trauma to discover their self-acceptance and step into their personal power. This podcast is your dedicated space for healing, growth, and transformation. Each episode shares insightful and inspirational stories along with practical tools and actionable insights that can help guide you along your healing journey. Today, I'm really excited about the guest we have on our show because she went through a very, very hard time that most people will never experience in their life. But she has taken that experience and done some amazing work, not just within herself, but also becoming an author to help other people navigate the world of trauma. So I'm going to read you guys in. Our guest today is RJ Fisher. She's the author of the book called The Girl That Got Out, and she holds a criminal justice degree from Penn State, where she studied urban ministry at Moody Bible Institute and has worked in the field of urban solutions, archaeology, and mental health. Her passion for finding ways to improve society stems from her own experience with violent crime, poverty, and the ageless struggle to understand the world around her. RJ seeks to help others navigate through the overwhelming emotions of trauma, stress, and grief by offering firsthand experience. So, without further ado, RJ, I want to welcome you to the Empower Grief Journey podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let you start off today just by sharing us a little bit about yourself and kind of sharing the story of what you went through. I know when we met last week, it was for me, it was a shocking story because I hear about these things at times, but I've never talked to somebody firsthand that's experienced this. And it was a very moving story that you shared with us. So I want to give you some space here to share that with the audience.
Okay, I will. Also, I mean, just talking about it last time with you and just rehashing it, reopening it up, it just it impacted me how much we never truly really get over the emotions of what we go through. With loss or grief or anything, we as soon as you talk about it or you think about it or you're hashing through it, it just comes back to you. Like it kind of, surprised me that I was feeling a certain type of way after we talked. And it was um just how important this podcast is and how important your work is doing this. Um, because grief is just such an ongoing process. It's just constantly ongoing. To have the accountability that you provide and the ear to lean on is just very cool, very crucial to the healing process. So, I just wanted to start with that because I was surprised last time about how I felt. Like, I was like, "Wow." I was like, "I've" whew,
Well,
you
I
know?
think that you hit on a
So,
big point with grief that I mean what you went through, if I'm trying to remember right, was about 12 years ago, if I remember
yeah,
right.
about 13. Yep.
13. And
Yep.
something that you hit on really big that I try to share with my listeners is that yes, we kind of move through grief and we move forward with it, but it's not to say that I'm 3 years into my journey. You're 4 times as long as that. And like you just said, kind of reliving some of that stuff, it's still there. It never
Yeah.
left. And so I'm really grateful you shared that today because that's a big part I'm trying to help other people see is that grief, you might feel fine one day or one year, but it'll come back in, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it'll re-show itself. And
Yep.
so it's an ongoing process to always work on it and always find ways to navigate it. So I'm grateful
Yep.
you said that.
Definitely. So, well, my story. Yeah, I was thinking about it this morning and, there's just one day, for most of us, and I think for people that are listening to the podcast right now, there's one day, at least one day that defines, what you hold valuable in life and defines where your grief started. You know, uh it's a big moment, it's a loss, it's an experience, something that you went through, and it shapes who you are, it creates who you are further on in life. So that day for me started pretty normal, like everybody's day usually starts. So I was just drinking coffee in the morning, getting ready to get my kid on the bus for school. He was 5, it's just me and him living in our apartment. Um, just I was looking out the window, watching people outside the window, not really thinking much of it. We live in a small town. And yeah, I was just kind of planning my day ahead. So I went out and I got him on the school bus and we're heading back to the house, me and the other neighbor. And there was a man standing at the bottom of my porch and he had a hoodie on and I kind of recognized it. I had seen him across the street earlier that morning, but I didn't realize who it was. But it was an ex-boyfriend of mine. I had broken up with him about 6 months before. Just wasn't we weren't going the same directions in life. And he asked if he could come in and talk to me for a minute. So I didn't think anything of it. Said, yeah, sure, that's fine. So we went in and we were talking. We just kind of chatted about life and just where we were at. And then I said, you're gonna have to go because I got to get ready for work. And he had a backpack with him, and he pulled out of his backpack a can of mace, a knife, and he said, "You're not going anywhere." And I was like, "What?" What? Like, I was not expecting that. And, in my mind's, like, racing, and I'm thinking, "Okay, you gotta get to the front door, like, you gotta get out, but is he for real? Like, is he like, is he joking?" And he was like, I'm tired of you, not being my girlfriend and I want us to be together. And he's like, you're not going to leave this house again. Like, it's not going to happen. So I ran as fast as I could past him and I got to the front door, but he caught me at the front door. Um, so my cell phone got thrown outside and I'm fighting for the door and he's fighting for me and fighting to shut the door. And there was a lot of flailing going on and he sprayed me so I couldn't see anything. And I was screaming, but nobody thankfully heard me because further on in the story, that's a good thing. um, and then he was punching me in the head and you just, when you're in that moment, um, you're doing everything you can to survive. You don't even notice what's going on. You're just trying to get out. But then I stopped. I felt a knife blade on my throat. He held it up against my throat and then he said quit. So I did. That was that was a game stopper. So he shut the door, locked it, and drug me into the living room. And he's like, "We're gonna stay here for a while." So he zip tied my hands behind my back and he zip tied my ankles together. Um, and he had gotten cut during the scuffle. So he went into the bathroom to clean up the blood and to, see what was on his face. Um, and so I sat there and I sat on my couch and I stared out the window and it was just this beautiful fall day. It was a clear blue sky and I could hear the cars driving by and I couldn't move or do anything. And I just thought, I'm that girl in the stories that you hear in the news, like, that's gonna be me, I'll be in a dumpster somewhere, and it'll be that poor tragic story of, a jaded lover gone wrong, and, I, obviously was shook up and crying and trying to calm down and trying to think, and I just begged in a prayer, I just said, "God, you have to get me out of here. Like, you have to get me out of this. You have to get me out of here." And, I just felt really, really distinctly that he said, "I'm not promising you're gonna get out of this, but I do promise I will be with you through it." So that calmed me down. Uh, I was able to breathe, and, he came back out, and we sat and we talked, and he was telling me what the plan was. He said that we were gonna stay there for 3 days. And, during that time, he was gonna torture me, and then at the end of 3 days, he was going to kill me. He was gonna kill himself, and then he had a bomb in his backpack that he showed me, like a homemade bomb for the police, because he figured they would be surrounding the apartment after 3 days, 'cause when I didn't show up to pick up my son, people would figure out, something was wrong. He said if anybody came to the door and knocked on the door, he would kill me instantly. So I was super grateful. The neighbor later said that her dog was freaking out and she thought about coming over and she was like, "No, I don't wanna bother her." So she didn't come over for whatever reason. And my mom had picked up my son later in the day off of the school bus and she saw my car there and she was like, "I was gonna stop, but I thought maybe you just, took a day off, so I didn't stop." So gratefully, nobody knocked on that door because had they, that would have been it. So, uh, he said, yeah, he said, he didn't believe in God, he didn't believe in hope, and that he wanted to teach me a lesson, he just wanted to spend time with me, and that if he couldn't have me, nobody else could have me. So, um, so we kinda, we talked for a while and, the situation kinda calmed down. He was, you know, in and out. He was just his face would change. Like he would be really angry one minute and then he'd be really sad one minute, and you just kind of didn't know. You just play along and be like, "Oh, it's okay." Um, and I asked if he wanted me to play the piano. He used to love to listen to me play and sing. And I've heard before that that works with a lot of people to calm them down mentally. So he said, yeah, he would. It would be okay. So he had undone my zip ties, which was awesome. And so I played. I sat and played for him, and we just sat and it did work. It calmed me down. It calmed him down. It really, I think it calmed me more than it did him. Um, and I just kind of wrote my own music, and I just sang about being lost and just wanting to be found. And then all of a sudden, like his face changed and he got real serious and he was like, "That's enough. I don't want to hear anymore." He's like, "Go into the living room." So we went into the living room and he was like, "I should just kill myself." And I was like, "No." I was like, "You should, we can just go. We can just leave, you know." And then he was like, "We're going into phase 2." He's like, "You're gonna call your son and you're gonna tell him goodbye." And it just so he said he was gonna go outside and get my phone so that I could call my son. So he zip tied me back to the radiator and he went outside, got the phone and came back in. And I was just thinking, I'm like, you know, you gotta figure this out. You gotta think of some reason that he does not need to have you tied up. And there was the living room, and then the kitchen was next to the living room, and the front door's in the kitchen. So I needed to get into the kitchen somehow. So I told him, I said, if we're gonna be here for 3 days, just let me clean up a little bit, because there's blood everywhere, there's mace everywhere. I said, just let me clean and then we won't be smelling it and looking at it and we can just, chill. Um, so he kind of shrugged me off and then he agreed to it. He was like, okay. So he let me go and he sat down on the couch and he was just looking through my phone. Um, he was trying to look at pictures of just people that I was friends with, people that I talked to. So I was in the kitchen and I was just cleaning and I kept bumping the door handle so that he would hear the sound of the door handle. And at first he would kind of like jump up and he would look and then he would see I was just cleaning. So he'd sit back down. And I kept doing that. So he didn't do that. Like he didn't jump up. And he finally said he was like, I found something. And I grabbed that door handle and the lock and I unlocked it and I ran and I just ran as fast as I could across the street. There's a little mom and pop store there. And I ran in and I ran up to the guy behind the counter and I was like, you need to call 911. I said, there's a guy chasing me. He's trying to kill me. And he was just kind of like, oh, ma'am, can you wait outside? And I was like, I cannot. Like this is for real. Nobody was expecting anything like that remotely. It's such a quiet little town. Um, so I hid in the back closet, like little cabinet they had there at the store and just waited for the police to arrive. So they called the police, the bomb squad came in, they had helicopters. They surrounded the house, they broke the windows, they broke in and he was gone. He wasn't there. He had left. He had ran out after me and then when he realized I made it to the store, he threw the bomb into the hedges on Main Street and then went and got in his car and left. So yeah, so I had to go into hiding then. The police took me to the hospital, got me all checked over, and then I went and my son met me at the judge's office, and we had to get some emergency paperwork in order. And then I went to a shelter, and I stayed there, hid there until about 4 o'clock in the morning. They called and said that they had found him, and they took him in, so we were okay. Um, yeah, that was pretty much the story. That's the day. And then it was years after that. The first couple weeks you're okay because your adrenaline's so high and you're excited because you made it and you survived and you're just like, wow, life is great. Um, and then just everything hits it. It kicks in and you start to wonder why and why did that happen why did he feel that way? And really just a part of you died that day. Like definitely a huge part of who I was died.
I'm I'm just really grateful that your son was left out of that thing for the most part. I mean,
Right? A
I feel
million
very grateful
percent.
that something left him out of that equation
Yeah.
to keep him safe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, I thought about bringing your son here and torturing him in front of you. He's like, but I felt that he
Wow.
wasn't evil, that you are evil and not him.
So
So,
now,
so yeah.
so did this individual that caused this horrific tragic moment for you, is he locked up right now in jail? Is
Yes.
he is? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. I remember you shared, I'll let you share the details of this, but I remember you saying over this last 13 years, you've gone through a lot of post-trauma from that. It's taken you a long time to find a place to feel safe, that you've had to move a lot to really protect
Yeah.
yourself and protect your family. I can't imagine what that's like to, for lack of a better term, it's like living in fear constantly. And I don't I don't blame you at all in that situation, by the way, 'cause I would be scared to death myself if that happened to me.
Mm.
But I mean, what was it like for you as far as, you said that first couple weeks you felt okay, and that's because that adrenaline runs really high. And
Mhm.
it's almost like when you come off that adrenaline, it's like reality kind of hits you, and all of a sudden you're just like, holy cow, what did I just survive? Like, what did I just
Right.
experience?
Right. Yeah, safety became just my number one priority, whether I wanted it to or not. My brain got stuck into fight or flight. Like I just 100%, I never felt safe. I could never feel safe. I think, also because it was in my apartment, that was just huge because your home is where you're safe. And to have that core, um, safe place be the core memory. um, there just was nowhere to go. So I slept in my car a lot. Um, when I would get scared, I would go in my car and I would lock the door because I just felt safe in there and I felt like I could drive away if there was a situation. And even though he was locked up, it was just, um, you just never know because it started like a normal day. Like it was just a normal day. And then somebody that I thought I knew did something like that. So then it was just like, well, if he would do something like that, what is everybody else gonna do? You don't know. And then there's people you don't even know that, may have problems or something that might sneak up on you, So yeah, everything, safety was a big thing. I think the biggest thing for me was the question why. It really bothered me. Like it really bothered me that somebody that I had loved to think I was so bad and so evil that I needed to die. That really just, you know, people break up with you or you go through a divorce or things like that and those are messy and those are painful. But when the person really like they want to kill you, you're just like, what did I do? It was like that bad. So I really wrestled with that. I was really happy-go-lucky before this happened, like, I was just very inviting, I never said no to anybody, if you came to my door, I would invite you in, um, and I love people, and, um, that definitely just it shut it all down. It just shut all of that down because I just wanted to live, um
I I can't imagine being, when you're stuck in fight or flight. I mean, safety's the big thing ticking off in your brain. It's almost like nothing else matters. You're just saying,
Yeah,
how can I feel safe and where can I feel safe at that point? And well, I mean, what's going through my mind is that, you said you're a very open, very welcoming person, and I think that's how most of us should be. But then when you experience something like this, it really draws out that fear of like, who else is going to pull this? Because
right,
I mean, that caught you on surprise that day. Like you said, it was just a normal day, just going through the motions of normal life, like we all do every day. And then that hits you, just like a ton of bricks. And it's just at that point, it's like, who do you trust and how can you navigate
right,
that? Um, how did that change things for, I know that you had a family at that point, you had a son, did that,
yeah.
what was that really like after going through that, trying to, I heard you moved a lot through that process, and
Yeah.
was that hard on him, or did he understand, why you were doing that? I'm just curious about his experience because you protected
He
him.
as far as I know, and we've talked about it now, he's older, he's graduating, so he's well on with his life. Um, we've talked about it and he didn't know. He said he never knew that it happened. He didn't know it was a thing. I probably told him when he was about 15. We had a conversation about it. So that's a blessing, that's a huge blessing that he didn't pick up on it. I think the hardest part was trying to heal and trying to have moments where you're breaking down when you have a child with you because you don't want him to see you being a mess. Because it scares him. He doesn't understand why you're so upset. Um, so trying to just rein that in all the time, trying to keep that in so that whenever he wasn't around, I would just massively fall apart. Like I would just curl up in a corner somewhere and have a good cry because you have to do that. You have to work through it. You have to cry it out. But I did try really hard to not have him involved in that. I think I told you a couple months afterwards, he cut his finger off in the bathroom door at Ponderosa. We we gone
I
out to eat
remember
and he
that.
cut the tip of his finger. Um, and I was already just my brain was very overloaded at that time. Um, and I was crying and they had him, they were gonna stitch it back on. And he just looked up at me and he was 5 years old at the time. And he looked at me and he was like, "Don't cry, mommy. Everything's gonna be okay." And yeah, that was and he had
Strong
no
kid.
idea he had no idea how impactful that was. It was just, um yeah, I give him credit for being here today because I don't think I could have taken the weight of all of that if I didn't know that I needed to be here for him. Um,
So, so tell me a little bit about your healing journey from that point. I'm assuming you went to therapy of some kind or got support from people in your world. Tell me a little bit about navigating that journey, because the thing that I try to tell people on my show is grief is not a linear process. You don't just have
right.
something happen and you're just fine. You have this big wave of times where, like you said, you want to curl up in a ball and lose it in a corner. I mean, that's completely
Yeah.
normal. But then
Yeah.
you have other days where you feel completely fine, like nothing ever happened. Um, what was your grief journey like as you started to heal from this?
Right away, like the first several years was like I said, it was more reaction. I was just reacting. My body was reacting to things, and so I moved a lot. I moved away and I lived different places. I lived down south. Um, and that was huge. That was really, really good for me. To just get away, to see different people in different places, and it made the world bigger and the event smaller, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and I always tell people, you may not be able to move, not everybody's in that situation, but if you can get away on a day trip or a weekend trip or something to just get away from wherever, whatever it was happened, that's huge. That's a big thing. I know adrenaline was another one. I got a job on a horse farm. I worked there for several years, and the horses are crazy. And I knew nothing about working with horses when I got the job. It was like a Craigslist ad, and I was like, "Oh, here, let me do this." And they are crazy. It's like 1,000 pounds of just energy that wants to run you over, and you're like, "What?" So that, like, just trying to handle them when you were handling them, you were in that moment. Like, there was no other thought in your head of but other than just like, "I gotta get this horse, and I gotta get it to the barn without it, like, kicking me or so." And so you would be so focused on that, and that healed my brain. That healed me immensely. Um, I mean, I do think it has to do with horses and nature also. Nature is one of the greatest healers. Um, you can just feel it, and, it sounds weird, but, like, people have therapy animals, therapy dogs, and they're trained, and, they know. They know when you're having a bad day, and the horses were like that too. Like, they would know. I would come in and they would be home for a while because they knew I was having a bad day. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think. That was all very reactive. Years after, I'd say probably around 8 years maybe, I started thinking to myself, like, you need to figure out how to handle this and how, because like you said, there's waves of emotion. So you'll be having a normal day, and like initially I would be in the grocery store and all of a sudden a wave would hit me. I would leave my whole cart and I would just leave. I got pulled over one time. I was leaving the grocery store and I wasn't paying attention really, which is terrible. You should not do that. I was having a panic attack and I was crying and I was trying to drive home and I got pulled over. And he walked up and he looked at me and he was like, "You can just go, ma'am." Because my face was so bad. Like I was just, and so I told myself, I said, you need to work through this. You need to learn how to ride the wave. Like you have to get a grip on it. So yes, therapy. I tried some therapy. I got some good insights from people. I did not get the greatest therapists. I found a lot of times like I would go in the next week and they wouldn't remember what we talked about the week before. So it was just kind
Mm.
of, I just felt like they didn't understand. It felt like it was really hard to find people that understood how I felt. PTSD is a beast. It's a monster. It's really, really hard to just because you're constantly nightmares, you're constantly panic attacks. But to me, the PTSD wasn't PTSD because at some point in time, my fear will be released. Could, it's still alive. It's still real to me. A lot of people go through the moment and they have PTSD from it, but it's never going to happen again. To me, it could, and so that hangs over your head. So it was kind of hard to heal because you're also preparing, you're healing, and you're preparing, and you're just kind of like stuck.
You know, it,
Um,
I
yeah.
read a book about complex PTSD one time because I was going through narcissistic abuse and my brain would not get out of that fight or flight like you're describing. Like my brain was
Mm-hmm.
on, the best I can describe it is like you constantly think there's a threat around you. Like if somebody
Yes.
says something or you see something, your brain's just like, okay, what's going on? Like, do I need to
Yes.
run? Am I safe? Your brain is just quick like that, and it's really hard to get out. And I read through this book and it said the reason you're stuck there is because your brain can't find that safe place. It can't find that thing that says that threat's not there because it's caught in a loop. And
Yes.
the only way to really break that loop is to give yourself space to really process and work through those emotions. Because if you deny them or you don't give them space or you try to, like you said, the big beast is that it's gonna come back. And just giving
Mm-hmm.
yourself that acceptance that I'm gonna have another panic attack down the road. I'm gonna feel anxiety down the road. It's gonna happen. And trying to tell your brain like this is a normal part of my healing process. It's not something to be
Yeah.
scared of. But it's really hard to work through that. Very, very hard. As I
Yeah.
came to find out. So
It is, and like I said, it definitely hits me, I identify it better now, I know when it's coming, I can feel it coming, like, I'm like, "Oh, okay," like, I need to get somewhere where I can just be quiet and just recharge because I know it's coming, I know breakdown's coming, um like I said, just talking about it with you last time, that caught me by surprise because I was like afterwards, I was just feeling so just overwhelmed, and I was like, "How are you feeling overwhelmed? Like, you wrote about this, you talk about this, like, where is this coming from?" But it was there, and it just is, like you said, your brain just keeps on looping on it, and you have to be like, "No, this is here, this is now, like, we're in this moment, we're not in that moment." Like, um,
I'm I'm really glad to
grounding.
hear that you give yourself space for those emotions because I think that's the biggest thing. I talk about a lot on my podcast that grief is this thing that people say, it happens. You got to learn to get on and move over it and let it go. And I sit there and I go, I'm not like that, and I sure as hell know most people are not like that. And
No.
when we like try to suppress the monster, he comes out crazy town. And that's where, I'll share my own personal thing. When I was doing that with my trauma that I had, I would have really bad anxiety attacks, bad. So
Mhm.
much so that I would literally have to talk to myself verbally, like in a mirror, and say, "You're
Yeah.
safe. You're fine. There's nobody in here trying to hurt you. There's nobody attacking you right now. Like, calm down."
Yeah.
I had to like say that stuff to myself because my brain would just like be on that loop we were talking about, and I couldn't break it unless I acknowledged it and gave it space. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that you've done that healing work, by the way. I think that's the honestly, that's the best way to heal from your trauma is giving that thing space to say,
Yes.
I see you, I hear you, I understand you. I'm right here, we're safe. That's a big
Yeah.
part of healing. So
Yeah. I don't know if have you ever looked into shadow work? Have you ever done, shadow work or anything like that?
I started to
Um,
do that.
yeah.
It got pretty painful, I'll be honest. So
It's
I stopped doing it at a
intense.
certain point.
It's very intense. That was a big thing for me, and I was like, "What?
Tell
This
me a
is
little bit
all in
about
there?"
your shadow work
Like,
experience.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I got a book, a journal with the prompts and all that, and to dig into it, and, I loved that it was private, like, I wasn't sharing it to I could be real, like, I could really put down because 'cause I'm I grew up as a people pleaser, I was the middle child, so I was just, I always keep the peace. So to be able to put down how I really felt and, yeah, just a lot came out just, just from my childhood and other things and other events and it's amazing how things compound from the day you were born. It just compounds and compounds and compounds and it varies and varies. And then you have relationships and then you have people and then you have this, then you have a traumatic event and all of that compounds. So when you're trying to heal from your trauma or you're grieving, it's everything. Everything's coming out, but you don't know how to identify it because you don't know what it is yet. Like,
yeah.
you're like, "What is this feeling?" Like, "That doesn't have anything to do with that," and then you realize that it came from a previous time or a further time, and the shadow work really put a name to my pain and to my feelings, and I was like, "This is why." And then you realize the lies that people told you. Like, if you said you were in a narcissistic, relationship, they lied. They lied to you a lot, and they told you you were something or you thought or felt something that you didn't. And so to sit there and be like, "Oh my gosh, here's all the lies and here's all the truth," and like, "What?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
that that's what happened to me.
yeah,
After I lost my son, I remember going to the traffic light at the hospital, and I've never been so angry in my life before. That was like a whole, I've never been
wow,
that angry. That was a whole level of something that I've never tapped into before. But my brain got really quiet for some reason in point two of a second at this traffic light, and I remember what went through my mind at that point is I said, I'm at a crossroads. Like I can either continue to tolerate and allow what I have in my life and continue to be this people pleaser, continue to try to be
yeah,
somebody I'm not, or I can step over here and I know this road's gonna be really hard. Because like
yeah,
you said, you start realizing that all these things you were told are a lie. All these things
yes,
that people said that you were are not true. You're really
yeah,
shadow works that discovery of self, and you start breaking down all the labels, all the judgments, all the accusations. If you've dealt with narcissists, they love to do that. Um,
yep.
and then when you really find out who you are, it's even more scary because it feels safe. This is what's
Yeah,
funny about it. Like it feels safe. You start to say like, wow, this is me. This is just,
mhm,
and it doesn't have any big emotion with it, which is interesting. It's just a
no,
very calm and collected kind of place. And
yes.
um, yeah, when I dove into shadow work, it got painful because I got 25 years of stuff I can dig into, and I got to a
Yeah,
place where I was like, oh my God, this is a lot. Like,
like, this
and
hurts.
yeah, kind of like you said about PTSD. I mean, it draws so much emotion up at once, and it's almost overwhelming. I mean, it's almost like somebody fired off too many neurons in your brain. You can't even process half of what's happening in there. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's like it's shadow work is a really great tool, I think, for people to work through trauma, work through grief. I will say that it's something to take at your own pace because
Yes.
you'll be very scared what comes out of that sometimes because
Yeah.
you'll realize the magnitude of it.
I would not advise it right away. Like, I feel like let yourself, feel your grief and let yourself feel your way through. And then whenever you feel like you're like at a decent place, then you can start because you're gonna kind of retake yourself back. And that's yeah, you gotta get out of the emotional part first before you can go back into it because it's brutal. It's definitely
But
yeah,
it's a good place to find yourself. And I try to
yeah,
tell people that, when you are able to get to that place of really discovering who you are and you step in your, it's why I always tell people in my coaching practice, my thing is I want to help you find self-acceptance and step into your personal power. The reason I say that is because like an onion, all these layers have piled up on us over the years
yes,
of all this
yeah,
stuff people said that we were, told us how to be, how to act, how to think, how to feel, how to deal with things. And 9 times out of 10, by the way, we don't resonate with that because that's someone else's experience. It's not our
yeah,
experience. So when we do step into our personal power, when we do find self-acceptance, all of a sudden, all those things, all those people, by the way, that said all those things to you, they'll go away. They'll all just
they
drift
do,
off and they're
yeah,
gone. But what you
yep,
do attract is people that support you, people that love you, people that respect you, people that say, I'm here for you. That's what I think was powerful about what you said about when you went to therapy. Like they would forget what you said last week. They wouldn't remember what you've gone through. They wouldn't understand. And I feel bad for people that seek out therapy and have that experience because in a lot of ways it's re-traumatizing again because
yes,
then you've got this thing of like, well, yeah, I can find another therapist, but am I going to run into this again? And am I going to feel this way
right,
again? Um,
yeah,
so you brought up a big point about, finding safe people to talk to. And I think that when you go through something very traumatic like you did, it's so important to find those safe people to talk to, the ones that don't say things like, "Oh, well, it's your fault because you did this," or "You
yes.
should have known better." Like that's really unhelpful in so many
It's
ways.
so unhelpful. You're just like, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, I wanted all that to happen."
I mean, I had
Yeah,
that happen when I lost my kid. I won't say who it was, but I got
yeah,
asked like, "Oh, well, is it because you didn't do this or didn't?" And I said, "Really?
which is insane.
I'm like, I just lost a kid. Now you're blaming me for that." I'm
Yeah,
like,
like, what?
I'm already kicked down. Don't kick me down further. Like,
Yeah, yep.
you
There will
know?
always be people like that. I call them weak people. They're weak people. They just feed off of misery is what they do. It's not not nice.
I think, I wanted to ask you too about that. As far as, supportive people in your life, did you have, family and friends, or close people maybe that you were working with at that point, that were there for you in a sense that, I've talked to some people that, have gone through some trauma and they had one friend they could call and that person
Yeah.
would pick their phone up all the time. Did you have a circle of people like that that were there to help you as you were on the healing journey?
I had friends and family, they helped me a lot with the physical aspect of it. I once again, I think just because my personality, I don't reach out for help a lot. I don't tell people that I'm going through a lot. Um, so, they were helping me out with, babysitting or just, pretty much like, if I needed something. But my brother, I have an older brother, he is a veteran and he was over in Iraq and he went through some really serious trauma over there. So I would call him at like 3 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't deal with it. I would just call him and I'd be like, I can't do this, I'm falling apart. And he'd be like, you're okay. It's okay. Because he had already worked through his. Um, so that was big, and he knew to just say, "You're okay." He didn't try to, like, explain it or tell me anything or give me advice. He was just like, "You're okay. Like, it's alright. You're okay." And, I think sometimes that's all you really need to hear. You just need to hear that it's okay. Everything is okay. Um, so yeah, he was my person there for a while, and then, then I wasn't quite so dramatic but I did need to process it, and to process it, I'm a talker, and I feel like most of us need to talk to process things, you gotta get it out. So the girls at work, at the farm, when I worked at the farm, we would just talk. That's what we would do. We would just talk all day, throwing hay, cleaning things up. We would talk and I we talked about it a lot. So that was huge because it was just calm and normal. It was normal conversation. Nobody was like, here's what you need to do. And we were just talking. And they've been through things. We are just talking about life. Like they were talking about their lives and my life. And we bonded pretty tight over that. And I would say that was um the greatest healing for me was just friends, finding good people that weren't gonna throw it at you to just talk to about it.
I think that's one of the biggest things. I laugh because I get asked sometimes when I tell people I'm a coach and they say, "Do you tell people what to do?" And I said, "Nope, it's not my job. Yeah, it's not my place."
Yeah,
I said, and
yeah,
what you alluded to that I want to shine light on is you had people hold space for you. You didn't have people tell you
yep,
what to do, how to be fixed. I've always said grievers don't want to be told how to be fixed. We will figure that out on
oh,
our own. Um,
yes,
but sometimes we need somebody just to hold space for us and say,
yeah,
I'm here to listen and I'm not here to give advice, but I'm just here to listen and take in, give you that space to talk and process, maybe get some thoughts out or some feelings out that have been bottled up. And it's incredible that when you give people that space just to hold it for them just getting that out, believe it or not, is extremely helpful for them because they're able now
yeah,
to see and feel what's going on up here, and it allows them to make different decisions and process things in a lot better way. Um, and I've had that happen on so many coaching calls with people where I barely talk. I ask questions a lot,
yeah,
and they end up telling me after a call like, I just had these breakthroughs. I just figured this out. Oh, I just had this thing. And I'm going, awesome. Like I get
right?
really excited for
Yep.
them. So
Yeah,
I'm really
creating
glad you
a
found.
safe space, having a safe space is that's huge. Just yeah.
I'm glad you found that working in the barn in the stables. I'll call it. My uncle has horses,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Oh, it's the best smell in the world. That still, if I smell it, I'm like, "What's this?"
I applaud you for that because my uncle's always like, "You want to come clean stalls?" And I'm like, "I have no interest in that. Just not my thing."
Right, right.
Like,
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. You would not think so, but maybe you should try it. It's very therapeutic.
well, I also applaud you because I'm scared of horses because I had an experience when I was really little, so I'm like terrified of them. But I love how you talked about horses from the mindset that they pick up on your emotions. I thought that was really
They
powerful.
do. They do. It would crack me up because it was a breeding farm, and so we would have the studs, and studs are very wild. They're just ridiculous. And they would be like, "Hey, take him out from the barn and put him out to pasture." And he's all just stomping around, and you're just like, he's not gonna think anything of like just stomping on me and running off, you know. And so I would sing, I would like hum, I would like sing like a little song while I was walking him to keep myself calm. Like I would just be like, "You have to be calm, you have to be calm." And 'cause as soon as you were nervous, he knew you were nervous, and it was terrible. It was like
Oh my
so it was
God.
actually a really good exercise in emotional control for real because you had to. You were like, if I don't control my emotions, I will get murdered by this horse.
Yeah. I think that's what scares me about them is, like you said, they're 1,000-pound creature and
Yes.
I've been around them a lot and I've seen that horses got some power behind them. They are not weak
Yes.
creatures at all. Um,
No.
so I just
And
get
people
intimidated by
always
their
think they're
size.
cuddly. They're like, "Oh, horses are so sweet and nice." And I'm like, "They're not. Like they're mean."
My uncle's had
But
some horses that are very nice. Like I get intimidated by it,
yeah.
but you can pet their nose and they don't have a problem with that. And then you got these other horses that they'll bite you. They don't have a problem with
Yes.
that. Like
Yes. I have a scar right here because I was throwing, hay to one of the mares, and she just bit my face because she felt like doing that, and I was like,
ouch.
"I'm feeding you, like, what's the matter with you?" Yeah, they're very moody, very moody.
So I wanted to ask you about, I wanted to ask you this question too. So you went through this very traumatic experience and now you work in a prison where you're working around people that I'm making assumptions, but correct me please if I'm wrong, but people that have done violent crime, people that are in there for
Yes.
whatever reason breaking the law. Has that been part helpful in your healing journey, I guess is where I want to ask that, or has that been something that kind of calms your mind down and distracts it from what you've been going through? I just been
I would
curious.
say, um I would say that it was probably my last, well, maybe not my last healing technique, but it was definitely one of the last, the big one, um, was just facing it. Something that I find is that I tend to fantasize about the experience in the sense that like I make him bigger than he is. Okay. So to me, he's like the Hulk and he's unstoppable and you can't stop him. And he's just this terrifying creature. Like it just, it morphed into my fear. Um, and so working in a prison, I'm around that mentality all the time. And I realize that they're just people. They're people like anybody else, but just something in their mind is off, is wrong. And so I've learned how to deal with that. I've learned how to de-escalate. I've learned how to read people. Um, I've learned how to definitely be situationally aware. You're always, always looking around. And I think I almost found comfort when I first started working there because I go through life constantly looking over my shoulder. Every second, every day, I'm always looking around me, always looking over my shoulder. So to work in a place where you are supposed to constantly look over your shoulder, it was just kind of like I fit right in there. This is not to say that this happened and I was like, I'm gonna go work in a prison. I had wanted to before this. I had wanted to be a missionary since I was a child. But I really wanted to work with the worst of society ever since I was younger. That was my dream. um, was to make an impact, was to study and to make an impact where society is the worst and how we can make that different, how we can impact people to not, end up there, to not go down that road and to be that. So it's been huge for me because um, it's almost like a bridge between that gap because I am a victim, but I am also offering mercy because I really do believe, I do believe in change. A lot of people don't, but I really do. I 100% believe that if people were given the right tools and their lives had been different, they would be different. Um, I haven't quite nailed all that yet. But I'm still researching, I'm still working on it, but, there's just so many factors, people's environments, their mental health, all of that. Obviously, we see, like, our society, drugs is just huge. I don't know what your hometown is like, but I know my hometown, we've seen just a massive takeover of drugs and overdoses, and, it's heartbreaking the amount of children that are left without parents. Um, it's just heartbreaking. Um, and I know that with trauma, that's something that, like, people don't wanna deal with their emotions, so they try to drown them and they turn to drugs or alcohol or whatever because it numbs it and they don't feel it. Um, so that's kind of been a big part of why I wanted to write this book because I wanted to help people understand that you can learn how to live with your emotions, you can live with your pain, you can deal with it without going down that road without throwing your life away. Um, it all ties together, you know. Um, if you can learn how to manage your pain and help other people, then we will have less people that are in pain that end up in these places.
I think that's really well said because, in my hometown, it's not what it was even 7 years ago. We have so
Yeah,
much rampant drug use, violent crime has gone up. There's lots of people doing property damage, breaking into
yeah,
places. And I think it's really sad in a lot of ways, honestly, because I've learned just in my life course of things in my journey that a lot of those people that are doing those things are very injured people. They have very,
yes,
very damaged, and unfortunately, they've chosen those outlets to take out working on their trauma, working on what they've gone
yeah,
through. And it's not fair, by the way. And I do think that, um, I wish our prison system was more focused on reform of these people and giving them actual help they need. Because
yeah,
I don't. and I'm only speaking from what I've seen on TV and documentary, and I could be completely wrong, by the way. But I just feel that, locking somebody up in a cell for however many years, it's not really, it's almost going to exacerbate that problem or cause more damage on somebody than if we actually took the
Right.
time to talk to somebody about their trauma or what they went through. Because there's so many people in the world today, like you said, they're hurting. There's a lot of hurt people out there right
Yeah.
now. And that my wife has a saying that hurt people, and it's very true.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it stops kind of like you said when we start cleaning up our own backyard is what I like to say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Fixing our trauma, being real with ourselves and saying, I have trauma from XYZ and I want to face it. I want to deal with it. Because we'll run across people in our lives that we'll see that they're in a place where we were a long time ago. And we now have the opportunity, by the way, to get back to that person and not just say, oh, that's a druggie or oh, that's just this person, but to say they've got some stuff going on and
Yeah.
nobody stepped up to help them yet. Maybe I'm the one that's called to do it. And if we were to treat our problems in society in that fashion, I really do think, to your point, we would see a massive shift in our society, and we wouldn't have so much of these drug problems or violent crime problems. I think majority of it would go away.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we're very big on not paying attention to what's happening next door. It's just American society. We don't.
Yeah.
And I feel like, if we were more aware of people were, struggling and just try to help them out, that would solve a lot of our problems. It really, really would. Like it just there's definitely, I mean, people definitely need to get locked up. Do they need to get off the streets at some point? Obviously, in my story, like they need to be removed and they need to reassess. Like there's some definitely not good people.
Hmm.
Even just there's way worse people that are just really mentally not well.
Yeah.
um, but yes, a lot of them, and I'd probably say a majority of them just really had life handed it to them in a really crappy way. Um, So it's been cool um, to take the pain and to turn it around. It's amusing. It's kind of funny really because, the pain of the trauma relates to their trauma, and so I've been able to have that door to talk, and I've had a million conversations, and it's just, it's so rewarding. It's been great. It's been amazing. We have a juvenile department, so they're between 16 and 22. They're divided up. But especially the young ones, especially the 16-year-olds or 18-year-olds, um, there's just nobody there for them in life. And I'm not saying what they did was right and they were justified, but they just most of them were abused their whole lives, and it just came out in a way. So it's yeah, I do feel like the prison system is moving more in the direction of reform. They do seem to be trying to tackle it, but they're not. I just feel like they miss the whole point of like the inner person, like what giving people the self-worth. I feel like self-worth is crucial to healing. Like you have to know what you're worth. If you don't know that, you're never gonna get over everything. So I just feel like everybody misses that point. Like
Yeah, I think that's a big point because
yeah.
there certainly are people out there that need to be in prison. They're just not let them in society and
Yeah.
pardon my French,
They
all hell's
can't.
gonna
Their
break
brain
loose.
yeah. They
And
just
so
can't. Their
like
brain does not work that way.
but I mean there's people that, I've even seen this watching stories about murderers. I watched a documentary on Netflix and I don't know again whether the validity of that or not, but I'll just say that some people end up in those circumstances of life, and I'm not saying what they did was right. I'm not condoning it, but I'm going to say
Right.
that something led them there. Something brought
Yes.
them on that path. And um, there's going to be people that, if we don't lock up, they're going to go out there and shoot 20 people. It's going to happen.
Yes.
But we're also have people that got in a bad situation in life, and it was a trauma response of some kind or
Yeah.
a defense situation, and that crime is not defining of that person. That was
Right.
an out of character moment of a life situation that unfolded the way it did. And that's
Yes.
again not to condone and say that was okay and just excuse it and write it off. It's not to say that, but it's to say that if we were to look at that inner person and say, was there some magnitudinal shift here that happened? Maybe they got brought up in a family life that was conducive to saying this is how to deal with things, or maybe they were around people that said do it this way.
Yeah.
So they never really got taught or shown those common things of how to be in society and cohabitate peacefully, the way I'll say that.
Yes. Yeah.
To your point, I think that if we did focus more on that inner work of people, that reform would actually make people that end up in jail or prison for whatever reason have another chance at life. And I think I think if we focused on that instead of so much the punishment side of things, I think there would be reform of people. Because I agree with you. I think there's a lot of people that do deserve a second chance. I think they just got
Yeah.
caught in a bad situation and, stuff happens. But there's people that show remorse. There's people that have empathy. There's people that say this was my accountability and my ownership. And
Yeah.
I think there's reform needed for people like that. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
so RJ,
That's why I
I
always
wanted
say there
to
could oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, you're fine. I just want to ask you about your book. I wanted to shine some light on that because I think it's really powerful that you went through this extremely traumatic process. It's been a long healing journey for you, and you're still in that healing journey, which I really respect, by the way, for you not saying you're fully healed. I respect that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, what was it like writing that book, and at what point did you decide that you were going to write a book about your experience?
Oh, man. Yeah, I tried for years to write this book and I could not get the story out. I would start and it would just send me into the darkest spiral and I couldn't get over the emotion and I would just quit and I would walk away from it and be like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. It took one person believing in me. Um, I'm dating him right now. Um, but he believed in me and he was like, you can definitely do this. You can share this story. Like it's powerful. And so I was like, okay, like I'm gonna do this. I got this. And I made a peaceful place. I have my back porch, which is all woods out behind, and I would just sit out there with my tea and I would just write until I could feel the panic attack or whatever, and I'd be like, "Okay, take a break," and then I would come back to it. I wrote probably half of it in the prison, while I was working. Like, if I was, had an outside post or something like that, I would carry a clipboard and I would just write while I was doing it. So, everybody kinda knew that's what it was that I was writing. Um, yeah, the story was really hard to get out. And then, the second half of it is just that I broke it down into, like, kinda 12 steps that I took or just 12 tactics that I used to heal, just naturally. That was pretty cool, that was fun to read. Um, but, publishing it was a challenge because I've been hiding until now. I don't really people don't really know. A lot of people don't know this about me. There's still a lot of people in my life that don't even know that I wrote a book. It's just very quiet. Um, and I wasn't sure if I should put it out there. I had a little fear over that. Um, but I really 1,000,000% believe in my heart that it is going to help people. And I believe that's the whole reason. I think that's the whole purpose behind my journey, behind all of it, is I really feel like I can step into places where other people can't and help people out, and I believe in that, and to me, it's worth it. So,
Well, I wanted to just say, as we wrap up the show today, I really appreciate you being vulnerable enough and willing to share your story because like you said when we started this podcast, you experienced what we all hear about on the news and how this kind of thing happens to people every day. And
yeah,
you're able to share this story, have written a book out of this, but also you're in a place where you're able to help people through traumatic situations. And I really feel like um, this was an awful, ugly gift that got given to you, but it puts you on this path of learning how to heal through trauma and helping other people through writing that book and really making such an impact in the world bigger than yourself. And so I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today and being sharing your story. And I'm just really, I'm really happy for you that you've been able to go on this healing journey and accomplish what you've accomplished. And you still have more to give, and you still are making more of an impact than you know. I just think that's really awesome. And I just want to celebrate you about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh, so I always wrap up the podcast with a couple questions at the end. My big one
Okay.
that I'll ask is if you were to run into somebody who's going through grief or trauma at this point or is stuck in that healing process, is there one or two things you would be open to sharing with them that way they can probably heal from it a little bit easier?
Yeah, I would say definitely give yourself grace and time. Know that time, it's a thing. Right away, it's gonna be hard and it's gonna be emotional and it's gonna be raw and it's just gonna be like you don't know what's going on. Your heart's being torn apart. But over time, it really does. You learn to live with it and you learn how to live with it. Um, so just know that like when you're in those moments that are just super excruciatingly like I can't do this. Um, give it time. Give it another hour. Give it another day and it'll subside. It's not gonna be so bad. And you're not alone. So many people go through this alone. I kind of did. Like I said, I didn't really like sharing things with people. And I remember one night being so desperate, I just got onto some kind of online chat thing and talked to somebody. I don't even know who, because I was just so alone. I felt so alone. Um, you're not alone. There's so many resources out there, so many people to talk to. There's you, which I wish, I wish you had been around during that time because that would have been amazing to have somebody just, encourage me and to be held accountable. But yeah, just grief counselors. I see this as a rising thing and I really love it. I love that it doesn't have to be in an office anymore. It can be on a Zoom visit or just whatever. And you're so involved in the person's life. And I just think that's beautiful because um yeah, loneliness is a killer. It just definitely is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would just say give it time and you're not alone.
I think that's a big gift that you shared here to wrap things up. That grief can be very isolating and very alone, if you will, and it makes it that much harder to navigate that and really try to heal when you're trying to walk this thing alone. And when you can find people out there that hold space for you, people that are there just to listen, not tell you what to do. And
Yeah.
then also at the same time, like you hinted at, the person you're dating, there's just somebody to believe in you and support you and really say, this is a good gift that you have, and I'll help you through this. I think that makes the difference in people's lives on the healing
It's
journey.
amazing. It's amazing.
So, RJ, I was going to ask my last question as we get wrapped up here. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's just www the girlthatgotout.com. And then on Instagram and Facebook, it's just girl that got out. There's no the. Um, and just bear with me. I'm older, so I'm a little bit new to this whole social media thing.
No worries.
I've been plugging away at it and trying to, and my son's like, "Mom, this is how you do it," But we're working on it. We're getting out there. But yeah, that's how you can find me. And but yeah, definitely the website. I have an email list on there. So if anybody needs to talk or, just have questions or whatever, they can definitely get on there and I'll answer. I can do email. I got email.
I love it. And if we wanted to get a copy of your book, I'm assuming we can get that off your website, or do you have another
You can get
place?
it off the website or you can go to Amazon. It's on Amazon.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Mhm.
Well, I just want to say thank you again for being on the podcast today. This was an incredible story of coming over insurmountable odds of a very traumatic experience and turning that into a gift that you can give back to other people who are going through it to help them heal. That's just, you have a very beautiful story, RJ. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing that today.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me.
And I want to thank all my listeners today for joining RJ and I on this episode of the Empowered Grief Journey. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with somebody that you know who could benefit from RJ's story. The Empower Grief Journey is all about honoring your journey, embracing your emotions, and finding strength in your own time. I want to invite you guys to follow this podcast and other episodes at empowergriefjourney.com. You're never alone on this journey, and together we can navigate grief with courage and compassion. Until next time, be kind to yourself and take your grief journey one step at a time.